Salam, my Professor Haluk Abi. This episode is in honor of you. You literally pushed me to make sure that Chinmay ji comes now onwards in English language for these geopolitics subjects. You made it happen. Thank you, Abi. Thank you. For guys, let me restate you. This episode is my personal opinion, my personal interpretation on the subject on the basis of my more than 26-27 years experience of international business, which I'm watching very closely, observing it every day on my desk. COVID times, you must have remembered, and the world had witnessed for the first time firsthand the importance of shipping lines, importance of logistics, the importance of the sea routes. And of course, in the last 1 year, we had been experiencing more and more such turbulences, whether it's the vessel held up in Suez Canal, the Red Sea conflict going on in the backdrop of Israel and the Hamas, Israel and the Lebanon, as well as the drought of Panama that disturbed the movement of the vessels on the Panama Canal. And this is a subject which I would love to discuss. How these sea routes have become very important for all the world, how we are interconnected. That I'm going to spot out, and that I'm going to discuss, beside why US is so much keen to have Panama back. Guys, in my last episode I had been discussing about the importance of the Arctic route, and of course the shipping line, the logistics route is also one of the key why the whole world is warming up in that particular area. In the same way, during the British Raj, of course India was their crown gem, and at that time that means they used to, whatever the stuff they used to produce, loot up in India, they used to take it back to Britain, and at that time they had been using the South African route, Cape of Hope. That means lot of time, lot of money, lot of energy, lot of resources to be consumed. So at that time that means they came out, the British Empire used to have lot of money, so they hired one French firm, one French architect to make up a canal on the Red Sea area, and that particular gentleman did it successfully, and that's what we call it today, Suez Canal, which is the lifeline of the world trade route. After the success of this particular route, everybody had started thinking, especially America. America was like an emerging economy in this part of the world, and especially they had also started looking at why not they can also have a canal somewhere in some Latin American country or Central American country, which can use to make a route short enough, because the North Americans export as well as their import coming to North America, they were using the Cape of Chile one that used to always have a very dangerous water. At the same time, it used to take a lot of long time means lot of fuel, lot of resources, lot of other stuff, the high cost. So that was the main reason why the Panama Canal has started popping up very dramatically to come out. So you can see, guys, in the business the cost matters. It is the cost which drives for the innovation, for the risk, to make sure in the future the costs get down. The success of Suez Canal speaks a lot. Guys, why and how the Panama Canal concept has started evolving among the business community of the Americans. Of course, it had been always there to have some sort of the route, some sort of the connectivity between the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean, how to connect with the shortest distance. It was being in the discussion from the 500 years back. At the time, Nicaragua was also a very strong focal point to have the canal there, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But now in 1850, You must have heard the name Gold Rush. The west coast of the US started coming up with a lot of gold mines, and everybody had started flocking to this part of the world. And of course, sending the gold from the west coast to the east coast of the same country, that is USA, used to take 3 to 4 months. And sending it by ship from west coast to the Cape of Chile back to the east coast is used to take more and more time. So at that time, the business club, the business elite of New York, they started discussing, started evolving a concept. We should have it now, a route connecting the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean with the shortest distance. And at that time, the Suez Canal got opened. Its glory started emerging all over the world. They also heard it, and immediately they hired the same French architect who did it, the Suez Canal. He came and he found that Panama is the perfect location because it was having a distance of hardly 50 miles to connect the Atlantic and the Pacific, and there had been big lake there also. So on that particular lake they can make lot of canals to float the vessels and pass it through and get it connected to the both oceans. He did all the survey, and of course he did lot of work, lot of money had been put up, lot of money, lot of resources consumed, and a lot of death happened. The laborers coming from the India, laborers coming from the Caribbean world, from the African world, they died in big numbers because of the exotic wildlife there, as well as the yellow fever. That means too many calamities. At one point the French firm got bankrupt, and the French architect went back like a failure. Beginning of the 19th century, 1903-1904, the American president T. Roosevelt came into the power, and of course the financial world, the business community had been still, and of course they always look out the shortest route to save their costs. They started pushing up to the president that we should get done this Panama Canal anyhow. Mr. Roosevelt took it like a challenge, like a mission, and he put up the American companies to get done. So the American companies at the time surveyed Nicaragua and Panama both, which is an ideal country, ideal location to have this shortest route connecting the Atlantic and the Pacific. After the initial survey, they found Panama is a perfect location. And of course the French already did a lot of homework there, that was more easy for them. So they came up, and this time they were more organized compared to the French to fight, to tame up the wildness of that particular jungle, the diseases and all the stuff. Of course, still the 26,000 people got died as per the official numbers, but still it was done. And by 1907, 1908, that means it started on the completion phase, but there was a bottleneck. What? How the business community, how the business elite can forget the concept of reducing their costs. They always keep it in the mind because their balance sheet always keep reminding. 2003, 2004, the new American president arrives. That is Mr. T. Roosevelt. American companies, corporations started pushing up the president that we need Panama Canal. If we have to reduce our cost to export to the other part of the world and to get import from the other part of the world, we need a connectivity point between Atlantic and Pacific, and Panama or Nicaragua is the right location. President also bought this concept. Of course, businesses always pushes the politicians well, so I'm not going to speak more, guys. You are smart. So the president gave the big thumbs up, but there was a big bottleneck. That means the initial survey showed to the American company, that means Panama is the right location to have this canal instead of the Nicaragua. Nicaragua was also a very strong bidder, but here in Panama the distance to the two oceans connection was hardly 50 miles. So they zoomed in for Panama, and the bottleneck was Panama was part of the Colombian country, and the Colombian country was not ready to allow American companies to go for this canal, because they know the success of Suez Canal, but at what cost? A lot of people died. A lot of people died, and making up the canal in this exotic jungle where the number of the death will be too high compared to the Suez Canal where it was a flat land, where it was a desert land. Here is a different cup of pie. So Colombia refused, and the Americans decided they have to go. Of course, the American businesses had been pushing the politics, and what they did and what still they are doing it. Whenever they want anything to happen, whether it's Panama, whether it's Iraq, whether it's any part of the world, guys, always think that means any political action means the business interests are there. The same thing happened. So all of a sudden in that particular time, 1904, 1905, 1906, a lot of Panama rebels started coming up, popping up. The country was, that particular part was on the fire, and of course after certain point the Colombian government has had to give up, and they said we free you, and the Panama got its freedom. And of course in the returns, Americans negotiated with the Panama separatists that Panama Canal is going to be owned and taken care by Americans. Here I'm saying owned and taken care. This is important. Why? I'm going to tell you up. And the rest country is going to be taken care by the Panama separatists as a separate nation, separate government. How? I'm going to tell you more. Guys, in short, Panama Canal came with a big investment, with big time, big energy, and lot of lives sacrificed, and a completely new country popping up from a Colombian country. So you can see a nation was divided. That was the cost of Panama Canal. But the truth on the other side is Panama Canal boosted the global trade. The movement between the two parts of the world, that means from to the Asian part, European part to the American part, has shortened dramatically. The cost of this particular logistic part has reduced dramatically. The movement time has come down dramatically. So if you see on the other side, Panama brought a lot of plus to the global trade. And when you see the figures, the statistics of today's trade among this particular Panama Canal, you can see dramatic number. You won't believe, more than 8 million of the cargoes travel through the Panama Canal. Panama Canal was developed on a large dam, and at the same time that we created artificial canals which is going up and down. Here I would love to say you check it out on the YouTube how the Panama Canal works. That is going to give you an idea, and zoom out the map of the global and you can see how the connectivity has reduced, and that's why a lot of other part of the world is discussing to come out such type of the canal also, like in the Malay Strait, the Strait of Malaysia, you can see that it is also happening. Thailand has agreed also that they should also have some sort of the connecting to the east and the west part to reduce the time. In the shipping world, the times, money plays a role. Everybody is looking for the short route, fastest route, and the cost-effective route. Back to Panama Canal, guys. Americans had been taking care of the Panama Canals very well. It had become very important trade route for them as well as the military route for them. Of course, it's very easy for the movement of their military vessels, military equipments from this canal. They had a control. It was like a choke point. Whenever they prefer, they can create a choke point there to create the obstacle for the rest part of the world. In 1977, all of a sudden you can see Jimmy Carter coming on the TV and saying that means we agree to hand it over this canal back to Panama government. Why it happened? Because just few years back in Egypt there was a big arrest and the government decided that we are going to nationalize the Suez Canal. So that led to fuel up the Panama people. Why Panama Canal should not belong to the Panamanian people? Why Americans are there? So because of that too much pressures, lot of international pressures, the Jimmy Carter surrendered, and it was decided, that means before the beginning of 2000. So on 31st December 1999, that means a treaty, under the treaty it was handed over back to Panama with, that means with a very important clause, that means Americans can intervene in case they are going to feel there is no fair treatment to all the countries about the movement of the vessels. So why all of a sudden Panama is back into the limelight? That's the important question that I am going to tell you up now. In this episode, guys, since the beginning I have been highlighting the importance of the sea routes, trade routes, the importance of logistic companies and the shipping lines. And the last 100 years global trade data speaks a lot how the world economy dominates now. That's why today we say economy dominates politics, and this is the truth. This is the truth. Guys, that means who are in the international business, you can feel, especially after the COVID, we have felt how the shipping lines have become like a one-sided, because they control the routes, they control the lines, they control the business, and of course the business part, that means the other part, that means the supply chain part, they feel helpless. That means whenever they want to increase the freight, we have to surrender, we have to pay it. So sometimes we feel how they calculate it. So this is the problem what we are facing till now. I am also in the international business. In our product segment also, we had been facing this particular part from the last 4 years. That is hampering our business a lot, and that's the reason the global routes is desired to be controlled by the superpowers, and that's the reason why the Americans prefer to come back to the Panama. As you know, guys, from the last 2 decades, China is putting up the ports all over the world under their Belt and Road Initiative, because they know through the Belt and Road Initiative, through the ports, through the road and the rail connectivity, they can control the logistics, they can control the trade routes, they can control the cost, and they can be the most influencing power. Even as I was telling in the last episode, even they are active in the Arctic world, although Arctic world is not a part of the Chinese borders, but they are active because they know that route is going to be a very important route in the coming time, connecting the Europe and the North America with the shortest time, with the least money. So you can see, so what they had been doing, and they have been doing in the Latin part, they have started coming up with the ports or buying the ports in the different countries. If you see the Panama, near to the Panama, in Panama itself, they have already got the east port and the west coast port, they control it, east and west both. So that means one on the Atlantic, one on the Pacific side. And here, that means American feel, that means they are trying to develop alternative connectivity to the Panama Canal. And beside that, that means in the Nicaragua, that means also few years back in 2007-8 around, one Chinese billionaire put up a proposal to build up a canal like the Panama in that particular part of the world. But unfortunately, that particular gentleman went bankrupt, and the people still say he was a mysterious. Nobody knows who had been behind him. Beside that, they have got the Mexican interrail connectivity, which is touching up from the Atlantic to Pacific Oceans, is already active. So Mexico has already become a part of that particular Chinese actions, and at the same time in Honduras they also did the same, east and the west part, both ports and connectivity. So they are trying to cause up to make sure that they have the alternative to the Panama Canal, and that's the point of the fear. But if you see the data at the moment, Panama Canal is doing 8 million cargo every year, but all these connectivities of Chinese nearby countries still is very less compared to the Panama. And here the Americans fear the Chinese influence are increasing, and Panama Canal is a very strategic asset by which they are connecting their businesses as well as their military. So in terms of the military and the business, they need now the control of the Panama. In case they are not going to have the control, they are going to be losing this particular, the Psyche war, and of course this particular logistics part warfare in the hands of the Chinese, and that's why Mr. President is very much aggressive to make sure the Panama get back. Whether it is possible or not, of course, that's a big question. But as I always tell, when the big corporations, big companies are behind the politics, they are going to make it happen. So keep checking up. Lot of activities is going to happen in Panama. Of course, Americans won't be leaving Panama Canal so easily. Of course, at the moment they are not controlling it up, but they would love to have it controlled directly or indirectly very strongly to have this control of this particular important bridge of the Atlantic and the Pacific. Guys, keep eyes on this connectivity, and at the same time keep checking how the Chinese are keep having a lot of force on the Latin world, Central American world, to have their influence, have their say on the connectivity between the Atlantic and the Pacific. The global trade matters. Who controls, who influences is going to win the war, and that's going to be the superpower.